What's up, Crossroads? Pastor Epi here, and I am honored to share Acts 25 with you today. So open up those Bibles and get ready. It's going to be a fun ride. You see, Acts 25 follows Acts 24. I know, it makes sense. But what we see in Acts 24 is that Paul is on trial, and he's been waiting for a fair trial for now 2 years. As Felix, the judge of this case right here, chose to wait for a special tribune, a special witness, you could say, to either validate Paul's innocence or to show evidence of his guilt. So even though Felix knew Paul was innocent, he said, we're going to hold off for 2 years. Now here is where the tension rises. Jesus would visit Paul in prison after 20 to 25 years. 20 to 5 years. We don't see anything written of Jesus encouraging Paul, of showing Paul, of reminding Paul. Nothing. Radio silence, 20 to 25 years. Now, as Paul is waiting to be on trial, I question it and I wonder, did he wrestle with insecurity? Did he wrestle with fear? Did he wrestle with frustration? Like, come on, God, like you said, I'm going to testify of you in Rome. Like, when's it going to happen? Or maybe knowing that they're going to bring a special lawyer again. Oh man, now I'm toast. Like, I don't know. And I wrestled with this because here's two reasons why I question that is, number one, Paul was human. Yes, Paul is an apostle. Paul is a saint. Yes, Paul is a great guy, but Paul was still human. He still was able to have fear, anxiety, stress, and frustration. And those things were experienced as they are today. It can be consuming, it can be contagious, and that state of fear can be continuous. So after 25 years, what would Jesus have to say to Paul that may ease his fears? Well, before I jump into that, let me just take a page from Pastor Rich's book. Let me tell you a story. I'm going to tell you the first part now, then I'll tell you the rest of it later. Rewind back with me back in the early 2000s. I was a sandwich artiste. That's a fancy way of saying I worked at Subway and I made sub sandwiches. I was 17 years old and they gave me keys to the kingdom, the restaurant. And basically, I was in charge of closing the shop every single night. I loved my job. I enjoyed it. I got to rock out to 80s music and, make some sandwiches and then, clean up everything. And I got paid an extra 10 cents an hour. I was balling. Not really. Okay. But I remember this one night. I don't know. You ever been alone and you feel like someone's watching you? Right? Yeah. You know what I'm saying? That's how I felt as all the lights were off. And as I'm closing up the shop, I just had this eerie feeling that someone is watching me. Now, I didn't really have that great of a relationship with Jesus at the time, but I was praying. I was like, oh, Lord, please help me, protect me. Except I prayed a lot of stuff. I put the money in the freezer, I set the alarm on, and I walked out. And as I walked out, I usually have this bag of trash that I would throw in the dumpster. Now, as I get to the dumpster, I noticed this hitch, and it was unlocked. Crazy, right? Now, I don't know about you. If you've ever been in this situation, you're like, okay, hold on quick. Before I open this door, what if there's a guy with a gun? I'd punch him in the throat probably, and I'd say something really cool. I don't know. Your imagination starts to run wild. Well, I open the door, and guess what? Not one guy, but two guys with guns come out, and they point it right at my head. My bag of trash falls. Poof. And I am zoned out. I am freaked out. I am thinking I am done for. Long story short, they told me to get on the ground and my life flashed before my eyes. Thinking, God, this is unfair. I'm only 17 and I'll never see my niece and I'll never get to hug my mama again. All these things. And I hear the guy cock the trigger back. Now, hey, I don't know what would go through your mind, but what went through my mind was, here I come, Lord. Please forgive me. And they were gone. Well, the story continues that night that somehow, miraculously, I make it back home. And as I get home, I had this stutter. I am freaked out. And my dad comes, he says, "What's wrong?" And I'm like, snap out of it. And I tell him everything. We call the cops. The cops come over, and you know what they say? "We found the guys. We want you to come down to identify them." I'll pick up the story at the end of the sermon. You got to stay tuned. Because as I wrestled with fear and as I struggled with oh my gosh, my life was on the line, I wonder if Paul ever wrestled with that too, being human. He was stoned, presumed to be dead, constantly attacked. And now what's going to happen is that Jesus would meet with Paul after 25 years in prison. What does he say? Acts chapter 23, verse 11, Jesus said this to Paul. He said this, "Take courage, for as you have testified the facts about me in Jerusalem, so you must testify also in Rome." After 25 years of silence, Jesus would say something so sweet and so profound that let's camp out on this before we continue our story. He said this, "Take courage." Now, take courage means to take confidence, be brave, be fearless. And in the Greek, it's written as an imperative. It's a command. There's no option. Take it. Take this courage. You see, this command was written about 6 times in the New Testament. We see 3 times here where Jesus would tell these certain people to take courage. You remember the paralytic who was, his friends opened that hole in the wall, the roof, and they dropped him down and Jesus healed him. He says, "Hey, take courage. Your sins are no more. I've forgiven you." Right? And then you have this woman who was healed from her bleeding issue. He says, "Take courage, daughter. You're healed. Everything's okay." And then the blind man, you remember he came up to Jesus and Jesus said, "Take courage, stand and walk." Now, why is this so important? Because these people had experienced reality for so long. The woman with the bleeding issue, she was bleeding for years. Her reality is that she's spending money on so many people, so many doctors, that she's almost bankrupt, trying to find something, living in the state of hopelessness for so long. But Jesus says this, "Take courage. You're healed." And then the paralytic, we don't know if he was paralyzed since birth, right? Never able to walk. Was he even afraid to say, "What would my life look like if I were actually healed?" Take courage. The guy who was blind, never able to see in his whole entire life, his whole entire reality would be completely changed. Take courage. So look at this. It's to put complete confidence in who Jesus is. Everything's going to be okay. Woman with the bleeding issue, trust me, it's not going to come back. The guy who's able to walk, trust me, I'm not going to take it away. The guy who was blind, trust me, tomorrow won't be different. Trust me, you're fully, completely healed, and you're going to experience a brand new reality. But then, guys, we're just warming up. Look at this. 4 times right here, he mentioned it in the New Testament, and he said it to the disciples. Now, it was in a different way, but basically, let me just boil it down to 2 different ways. 1, when Jesus walked on the water, he said, "Take courage, it is I. Don't be afraid." Jesus, their master, their teacher, said, "Look, exchange your fear for trust. Exchange your worry, exchange your anxiety, exchange it all, and trust that I'm standing on your biggest threat in your life right now." But then he warned his disciples, he said, "Hey, look, not many days from now, I'm going to go to the Father, and the world will hate you. If the world hated me, know that it hates you. And if the world doesn't want me, trust me, the world won't want you. But take courage, for I have overcome the world." See, these followers of Jesus only knew one reality as well. In the case of walking on water, they'd never seen someone survive that kind of storm. They'd never seen someone face that kind of challenge before. To know that the world would hate them. Maybe they had a neighbor that hated them. Maybe they had a family member they had beef with, but the world, Lord, I've never experienced that magnitude of hatred before. Take courage for the unknown. So in all these occurrences, I want you to take away this right here. When Jesus says, take courage, Jesus shows that fear can be replaced with truth. Now, as Jesus meets with Paul after 25 years of radio silence, he says, take courage. Now, the only difference that we see with Jesus using it with Paul, it was a command to say this: I want you to live in this reality every single day. Every single day, I want you to take courage, be brave, be bold, have trust and confidence in me, and trusting God as lifestyle. Never giving him an option to trust on his inner strength, but once again, to live with the bold inner attitude that God is in control, that God will empower, and that God would see him through regardless of the circumstance. So even when circumstances say otherwise, even when you feel like you're wasting your time here, Paul, in prison, even when you feel like you're not seeing fruit here in prison, take courage. I am in control. When life and its challenges hit, it's so much easier, y'all. Can I just speak to your heart? It's so much easier to play the victim, to be full of self-pity. You might have a bad day. You might have a bad week, a bad month, etc. And then something else happens, right? And you're like, this always happens to me. Everybody hates me. No one wants good for me. Like, no one cares. Like, have you ever said that before? Do you have somebody in your life like that before? When you're full of self-pity, I love this quote. It says this: basically, when you're full of self-pity, you get your eyes off of Jesus. Self-pity comes when we are overwhelmed by how circumstances affect us. We may become irrational, emotional, depressed, angry, or all the above. When someone is involved in self-pity, he does not have God's perspective because he is so concerned with what is happening to him, he forgets to see the whole picture. Now, church, before we get into Acts 25, the reason why I want to camp out in Acts 23:11, where Jesus said this: take courage, because Paul didn't know he would wait an extra 2 years. The same word is for you. The same command is for you to take courage, be brave, have full confidence, have full reliance in who God is. Your season, your struggle, your challenge is only temporary. Living with self-pity is hard, but also taking courage is hard. Choose your hard. It's hard walking in life as if everyone and everything is out to get you. And it's hard to take courage and trust that an all-knowing, good God who overflows you with grace is continually with you, will never leave you and forsake you. He is continually working in you, through you, before you, and going before you. Choose your hard. And my hope is that you'll place your confidence and your trust in God, and that you'll take courage. And as you take that courage, I hope that you'll exchange fear from what paralyzes you, that you'll exchange the shame that condemns you, that you'll exchange the anxiety that haunts you, and live with the bold inner attitude that God is with you and will see you through. Take courage. But back to our story. So Paul took on this lifestyle of taking courage. No matter how long it takes, God, you're in control. I trust you. going through this court system, waiting for his day to either proclaim the gospel or present his case. And so we're going to read Acts chapter 25, verses 1 through 3. Oh, it gets good. You ready? Okay, here we go. Now, 3 days after Festus had arrived in the province, he went up to Jerusalem from Caesarea. And the chief priests and the principal men of the Jews laid out their case against Paul, and they urged him, asking as a favor against Paul that he summon him to Jerusalem, because they were planning an ambush to kill him on the way. Now, I want you to notice right here who Paul's accusers are. Did you notice that? They're chief priests and principal devout men. They're leaders in the Jewish community. These are people who had the same first part of our Bible, especially the part that says, do not bear false witness. The part of the Bible that talks about grace. The part of the Bible that says, live with integrity. The part of the Bible that says, pray to God and seek him, to repent, to turn away from their wicked ways. That part of the Bible, these people had access to. These are the people that teach it every Sabbath. These are the people that should have known better. And yet they push the moral and ethical line, even willing to lie to a Roman official. And because these people say they represent God, look at this, they were still able to bring pain. Paul is still living the lifestyle of courage. God, even these leaders that should know better, even these people, God, that I once called brothers, are seeking my death. God, you're in control. Even when they act foolishly, especially God, when they call themselves people of Yahweh. So Festus said that he would judge Paul. And Festus said, you know what? Bring any of your people, come down with me, and we'll judge them all together. So, in verse 6, we're going to pick up the story. After he stayed among them not more than 8 or 10 days, he went down to Caesarea, and the next day he took his seat on the tribunal and ordered Paul to be brought. When he had arrived, the Jews who had come down from Jerusalem stood around him, bringing many stories and serious charges against him that they could not prove. Paul argued in his defense, neither against the law of the Jews, nor against the temple, nor against Caesar have I committed any offense. Oh, man. So you see from Acts chapter 9 all the way to 25, about 25 years have passed. And Paul had been accused over 13 times. One time by Gentiles, non-Jews. But all 12 other times by Jews, his brothers, fellow believers. Even after they lied to his face in front of a Roman official, Paul still lived with a higher standard. Why? Because I think his heart was in tune with Peter. As he said in 1 Peter chapter 3, verse 9, do not repay evil with evil or insult with insult. On the contrary, repay evil with blessing, because to this you were called so that you may inherit a blessing. Now, church, let me just give you a side note here. How easy would it have been just to say, they're liars, they're punks, they're swindlers, name calling them and accusing them back to their face? So much easier. But Paul said this, I'm going to keep my mouth shut because the message that I have, I don't want to add one dot, one iota, one crossing the T, nothing that does not honor God. And maybe attacking those people and going down to their level will not honor God. And it will not help my witness of the gospel of transformation happening in my life. Because you remember, Jesus too was betrayed, lied about, falsely accused. And what did Jesus do? He remained silent and he still took the cross. So as Paul is transformed from glory to glory into not only the character of Christ, he is able to suffer like Christ as well. back to our story. So in verses 9 through 10, let's see what happens. But Festus, wishing to do the Jews a favor, said to Paul, "Do you wish to go up to Jerusalem and there be tried on these charges before me?" But Paul said, "I am standing before Caesar's tribunal, where I ought to be tried. To the Jews I have done no wrong, as you yourself know very well. If then I am a wrongdoer and have committed anything for which I deserve to die, I do not seek to escape death. But if there is nothing to their charges against me, no one can give me up to them. I appeal to Caesar." So, what is he going to do? I appeal to the highest court. I know that I'm innocent. Let's take it to Caesar. We pick up our story in verse 13 through 16. Oh, look at this. It gets even better, y'all. So now, when some days had passed, Agrippa the king and Bernice arrived at Caesarea and greeted Festus. And as they stayed there many days, Festus laid Paul's case before the king, saying, "Look, guys, there's a man left prisoner by Felix out of their case against him. And when I was in Jerusalem, the chief priests and the elders and the Jews laid out their case against him, asking for a sentence of condemnation against him. I answered them that it was not the custom of the Romans to give up anyone before the accused met the accusers face to face and had the opportunity to make his defense concerning the charge laid against him." Now, I want you to notice Paul's growing audience. Not only did you have Festus, the guy who has been in the muck and mire so far for the past 2 years, but now you have King Agrippa II, and you have Bernice, traditionally known as his sister. And as they come, you notice that these two people, they may have not been absent-minded. They may have not been ignorant of the gospel that Paul was proclaiming. You're going to love this. You ready for this? You see, Agrippa's great-great-grandfather was the great King Herod. He was the one who not only rebuilt Jerusalem and did some great stuff rebuilding the temple. He was known so great, but also he was also infamous, being known traditionally as 4'9". You can imagine that, right? With an anger and a temper that would flip at the flip of a coin, right? They said this traditionally: it is safer to be Herod's dog than it is to be his son, because he was willing to kill his own family if he caught wind or a thought that they would betray him. He murdered so many people, including, you remember, when Jesus was about to be born, there was a prophecy. And so what did Herod do? Kill every kid 2 years and younger. And you remember that. There was a great wailing at the time of Jesus' birth because Herod was evil. So the thought of Jesus coming onto the scene, it brought intimidation. It brought fear that he was willing to kill other people. But then as he died off, right, you remember Herod Antipas. That's Agrippa's grandfather. Herod Antipas was an evil king as well, who was known for beheading John the Baptist. But then it gets even better. Agrippa I, as we read in the book of Acts, is the king that is known for killing the first martyr of the apostles, James. And so, as we see with Agrippa I, not only did he do injustice, but also he went to Caesarea. You remember that story, right? Where people were praising him as God and he didn't stop them. And so God allowed him to be struck down. And traditionally it's believed that he was killed by worms, eating him from the inside out. Crazy, right? So as we see the lineage of Agrippa II, what can we pull out from that? Is that Agrippa II may have heard stories of Jesus. He may have heard stories of Jesus' followers. But now he'd be given the firsthand experience to hear the gospel for himself. So can we pause for a moment real quick? God's grace toward a family marked by rebellion, the sins of Agrippa's ancestors, did not prevent God from extending the offer of salvation to him. God passionately pursues people regardless of their background, their lineage, or even the worst sins they have ever committed. I love this quote. It says this: grace breaks through where history is stained with failure, reminding us that no family story is beyond the reach of redemption. Now, church, I want you to hold on to this, and I want you to prayerfully think about it, chew on it, and respond. If God's grace could reach Agrippa II, it could reach people in our lives that we are tempted to give up on. There's no hope that John Doe right here will ever accept Jesus. His whole family are witches, or his whole entire family are backslidden. His whole entire family is just bad news. There's no way that God would ever help Jane Doe here because she's addicted to meth. She's addicted to this horrible lifestyle, etc. Guys, I tell you, there's no barrier too strong. There's no path so far away from God. There's no darkness that anyone can ever hide from the God who intentionally pursues people through his grace every single day. How I'd encourage you to respond is this. You can pause this sermon right now. You could pray in your heart that you would align your heart to God's and say, God, allow me to pray for that person right now. To pray for people to come into their lives. For you, Lord, to intercede however you find necessary. And God, if you want to use me, I pray that you'll give me the words to say at the right time. That God, you would tell me and give me that discernment of when to talk about you. God, that you would allow my life to be a witness of your grace and your goodness. God, use me if necessary. But if you desire to use anybody else, go for it. Pray for them, not just once, every single day. Because God's grace desires to reach that person. But back to our story. So in Acts 25, we continue our story in verse 17 through 22, and it says this. So, when they came together here, I made no delay, but on the next day took my seat on the tribunal and ordered the man to be brought. When the accuser stood up, they brought no charge in his case of such evils as I supposed. Rather, they had certain points of dispute with him about their own religion, about a certain Jesus who was dead, but whom Paul asserted to be alive. But at a loss how to investigate these questions, I asked whether he wanted to go to Jerusalem and be tried there regarding them. But when Paul had appealed to be kept in custody for the decision of the emperor, I ordered him to be held until I could send him to Caesar. Then Agrippa said to Festus, I would like to hear this man for myself. Tomorrow, said he, you will hear him. So, Festus catches Agrippa up, and Agrippa is bought in. He says, I want to hear more. Now, as we're about to read verse 23, what I want you to envision is a red carpet in our modern day thought, right? And the red carpet usually is a movie premiere, an award ceremony where all these celebrities come and there's like paparazzi taking pictures. You have the fans that are screaming, woo, kind of like that. But now I want you to kind of make it ancient Israel-esque. Okay, I got a picture for you in case you need it. Here we go. It's verse 23. So, on the next day, Agrippa and Bernice came with great pomp, and they entered the audience hall with the military tribunes and the prominent men of the city. Then, at the command of Festus, Paul was brought in. Okay, I want to build this up for you, okay? So, Agrippa says, I'm bought in, I want to hear you. And instead of just coming in and hearing Paul for himself, word went out. We have no clue how many people came, but these people were the big names of that day. They were prominent people, military leaders, royalty, great pumped. And you can imagine the commotion outside is, here comes so-and-so. The crowds go wild. The people are wearing their best outfits. They're looking good, dressed in the nines. They come into the auditorium. They smooth. It's so good to see you. Oh, how's your kingdom? My kingdom's good. You can see as it's growing and growing. The crowds continue to cheer. Oh, here they come. Here it comes. I can even imagine these ancient commentators like, oh, wow, they're wearing Herod's favorite uniform today. I don't know. I kind of thought about Joan Rivers too. May she rest in peace. But like, here is great pomp and circumstance, name after name, person after person, dressed up so fancy, so great. And they fill this auditorium. And then King Agrippa comes. Everybody stands to their feet. Yeah, woo! They're cheering each other on, patting each other on the back. Yeah. And Herod Agrippa says, silence. Bring Paul in. And in walks a man in chains. And as he stands silently, I wonder, and I entertain the thought, what went through his mind? Like for me, like let's be honest, if you're in that situation, I'd be intimidated. Like, I only heard stories of that guy. Oh my gosh, like that person has the ability to kill me. Like, oh my gosh, wow. I've heard so many stories. Paul stood there, and my assumption is that he prayed silently. I kind of wonder if he felt a little bit of pity as well. These people pat themselves on the back because of the family they grew up in, or because of the victory they experienced. But Paul felt confident, not needing to compare himself or desiring the applause of others, because he found his value and his worth in the applause of one. I may stand here in chains, but my God is proud of me. My God loves me. He created me for such a time as this. And though fame and popularity may fade with the passing of a person onto death, my value and worth will remain the same from now into eternity. I don't want to live for the applause of many. I want to live for the applause of one. I don't want to build my kingdom that will fade as I pass away. I want to invest my life to build the kingdom of God that will move on and live on from glory to glory until he comes back. And then it's going to be even crazier. That is what I put my worth in, my value in. Applaud for each other all you want. I'm not jealous. My God is proud of me. My worth is in him. So then it gets even crazier. Let's read verses 24 and finish out the chapter. And it says this, and Festus said to King Agrippa and all who were present with us, you see this man about whom the whole Jewish people petitioned me. You see how he's kind of exaggerating? The whole people of Jerusalem. They asked me personally. No, it was just the people that hated Paul. Whatever. Okay. They petitioned me, both in Jerusalem and here, shouting that he ought not to live any longer. But I found that he had done nothing deserving of death. And as he himself appealed to the emperor, I decided to go ahead and send him. But look at this. Look at this, right? But I have nothing definite to write to the Lord about him. Therefore, I have brought him before you all, especially before you, King Agrippa, so that after we have examined him, I may have something to write. For it seems to me unreasonable in sending a prisoner not to indicate the charges against him. So look at this. Look at this. Okay. Not only would I personally feel the intimidation factor of all these people, but now Festus is saying this. What I want you to do is I want you to listen in on the story that Paul has to say. And if there's just one thing, one crack, one flaw, just something that could be twisted, you guys let me know as we examine him. Because I want to tell Caesar what is going on. Now, I would feel intimidated of saying, okay, I got to be really careful with my words. But remember, Paul was living with a lifestyle of taking courage. And Paul taking on that bravery, being fearless, and having confidence in the Lord would say this, I am going to be faithful to give my testimony. I'm going to hold on to the facts. I'm not going to bring any puff. I'm not going to say any accusations. I'm not going to go down to the people's level. I'm just going to talk about Jesus. Paul wasn't focused on the results of the people, thinking, oh man, we're going to have mass revival here. Yay. He says this, no, I take courage. that my bravery and my fearlessness, there's nothing that these people can do to me. So I right here will be audacious and speak the truth. So church, let me get back to that story. The cops come, they say, hey, we found the guys, we want you to identify them. I was freaked out. I did not want to go. And so what happened is my dad, he wasn't this lovey-dovey kind of dad. He wasn't the sitcom kind of dad. My dad was rough. My dad was so rough that he would call you out if you cried, you sissy, like that, right? And I remember that my dad stood up at that moment. He says, I'm going with you. And at that time, as a 17-year-old young man, like I felt as if I were even younger, saying, I looked up to my dad like, oh my gosh, you're going to protect me? So we get into the back of the police car and we're driving and we get down to this one sketchy area and we see the guys in handcuffs. And I remember just fear just overwhelming me. Like, oh my gosh, like those guys, like I almost died. And like, I was just like tense. And I remember at that time, once again, my dad's not lovey-dovey. He grabbed my hand and he squeezed it so tight. He didn't say one word to me, but I could see him looking out. And at that moment, I was able to relax just a little bit, even though I still struggled with fear. But I knew like if anything were gonna happen, if somehow, some way, these guys broke out of their handcuffs and beat up all the police, they'll never get past my dad. My dad would protect me. My dad would put his life on the line for me. The anxiety melted off little by little, the fear little by little, as I held my dad's hand even back and I clutched it as the fear would come back. Church, I tell you that story because sometimes in life right now, what you have been doing, maybe you've been hit with life, maybe you've been hit with a challenge and you're struggling with anxiety, you're struggling with fear, you're struggling with another challenge. These people are lying, false accusations, and you feel so alone. Take courage. God is with you. And just as I was with my dad in the back of that car, he is with you. And he's willing to hold your hand. And he's willing to walk with you every single day as you go through your valley of the shadow of death. That something may happen, but God gets the last word. God is with you, that you can be fearless in the situations you feel that are going to consume your life. You can be brave in situations you never thought you could be brave before. That you can have courage to honor him when all you feel like doing is running away. Have this renewed confidence that you are not facing life and its situations and its challenges alone, but you are facing it with God himself. That you too can be just like Paul the Apostle and stand amongst a whole entire room of people waiting for you to mess up and stand boldly and speak about him in truth and grace, even extending the gospel to these people as well. So hold on, take courage. Father, I thank you so much for this time, Lord, that we're able to go over this story about Paul. And God, I thank you so much for the reminder for us, Lord, to take courage that you offer us today. That we don't have to live in the reality of self-pity, but we can exchange that, God, and live in the reality of knowing that you are in control. Knowing that you lead us, Lord, every single step of the way. That you empower us, God, that you value us, and that you applaud us, Lord, even as we take our first breath in eternity when you say, well done, good and faithful servant. God, allow us today to be introspective and to surrender those fears, surrender those anxieties, and in exchange, take on your courageousness, God. In Jesus' name, amen.
Thanks for watching Crossroads Community Church online. We'd love to hear that you were here today. You can fill out our online connection card with your prayers, praises, and any questions you have at crossroadscn.com/connection. Links are also provided in our bio. If you want to stay up to date, check out our website for upcoming events that are happening at your campus. Thanks again for watching. God bless.